so much for putting an hour aside tonight to have this conversation with us. My name is Gemma. Kia ora. I'm the co-founder and CEO here at Seed, and I use she, her pronouns. Tonight, we're going to be diving into financial well-being and looking at sharing some different stories with the goal of us being able to learn a little bit more from each other in terms of like tools, strategies, hacks that have helped us gain more financial well-being. And tonight's really built on one of our values, which is ARCOR. And ARCOR means that we're all teachers and learners, and no one's a holder of knowledge. We've all got stories and experiences that we can all learn from. So tonight's a bit of a storytelling format. We've got a few different things, a few different angles to go through with you tonight. I just want to share that I am coming from Kirikiriroa in Hamilton and wanted to acknowledge Waikato Kainui as the mana whenua and Kingitu Heitia. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started. We record our workshops and pop these online so that other young people can engage with them after this time frame. So if you don't want your face to be recorded, please turn your webcam off. And if you want to edit your name because you don't want your name to be on the interwebs, this would be the time to do that. I also would love to introduce you tonight to Louise Hutt, who is our head of digital strategies and the architect behind everything. She uses she, her pronouns, and Louise is here tonight to moderate our questions. So what we'd really encourage you to do is to turn on your camera and your audio and do some sharing when the space calls for it. If that's a little bit too uncomfortable, please do send your questions to Louise and she can ask them anonymously on your behalf. So yes, have I said all the things? We have a poll. Here we go. There's the next thing. There's a poll that has bounced up on your screen. So there's a few different topics we could cover tonight, but we really wanted it to be led by shit you care about. So if you can fill out the poll and press submit, that'll give us a bit of an indication of how we're going to build the plane as we fly. So I'm going to hand over to the ASB team now to introduce themselves. So Po, shall I hand over to you?
Thanks, Gemma. Hi everyone, I'm Po from ASB. I am a business analyst and I work on fun customer-led projects at the moment. I'm also a original Hamiltonian, born and raised, so really proud to be part of this group and helping to talk about things relevant to Waikato people as well. And now I will hand over to Sophie, who's this way on the gallery.
Thanks, Po. Hi, I'm Sophie, and I'm also from the Tron as well. Great place. I work in the investment strategy team within our wealth division. I've been at ASB for about 1.5 years almost and love it. I'll pass it over to Tarah.
Hi everyone, Tarah here. I'm speaking to you from Auckland, but I do love Hamilton and I plan to go to the gardens in the coming weeks. I'm a compliance analyst at ASB, so just ensuring that any new laws are compliant and customer centric. And I'm really excited to be here with you tonight. I'm going to pass it on to another speaker, Chelsea.
Kia ora everybody, I am Chelsea and I'm based in Wellington at the moment, and it is absolutely raining really hard. I was about to swear then, but I thought better not. I am the regional manager, so I look after branches in Wellington and the top of the South Island, and I was here for our first workshop, so it's awesome to be back. And hope that you guys take a lot away from our session this afternoon. So I will now hand over to Travis.
Kia ora everyone, so I'm Travis. I am a business relationship manager in the Waikato region. So I'm calling from Hamilton, 4 years with the ASB. Yeah, really looking forward to sharing my piece later on today. Have I missed? Oh, Melissa, we'll pass you on to you.
Thanks, Travis. Hey, everyone. So I'm Melissa. I'm based in Hamilton as well, and I'm our branch manager at our Waikato Uni branch. So thank you for having me. I believe I am passing to Gemma.
Wicked. Oh, we're on fire tonight. All my tabs on my computer have frozen, of course, and so now I'm just free flowing from no notes. So here we go. Yeah, as I mentioned before, tonight we're going to focus on sharing some stories and creating an opportunity for us to kind of learn from each other through that process. And I wanted to kick us off with money mindset as a real game changer and shift for me over the last couple of years when I think about financial well-being. And so what money mindset has really meant for me was really becoming quite aware of what lens do I view money? What is my relationship with money like? Do I have a scarcity lens or do I have an abundance lens? And when I started to unpack this a little more, what I realized was that it was scarcity. I never felt like I had enough. I didn't have enough because it was always in and then back out, or it would be like debt. And I just had this relationship with money that wasn't one of abundance or of positivity. I just thought, oh my gosh, budgets, oh my gosh, bank account, I don't want to look. And so one of the habits I started doing was just bringing some awareness to my interactions with money, and whether it was swiping my card when I purchased something, or just being mindful that I was feeling uncomfortable when I did my budgeting, and just starting to understand where might this be coming from and what is the story that I've told myself about what money means to me. And through that practice of self-awareness and just noticing what my relationship was like with money, I was able to understand that when I was growing up, when I reflected back, when I was growing up, we didn't have much money. We were kind of always in secondhand school clothes. Whenever we were at the checkout buying groceries, mum would always be like trying to find enough money, like transferring money, and we would move a lot. And so I realized that I was carrying my mum and my dad's perception of money into my adulthood. And then I just asked myself, could there be a better way to think about money? And so I started to kind of shift some of those beliefs around it and kind of almost fake it till I make it, with a bit of, I have enough. There is enough around me. I attract enough. And just kind of started to reprogram some of those beliefs that were really damaging my relationship with money. And what I started to notice was that overdoing this practice for some time and having like a really comfortable awareness with the amount of money going in and out of my account, and starting to kind of fall in love with budgets and my spreadsheets, and starting to have more discipline about how much money I would put aside for different things. What I started to notice was that within about 2 years, I was able to set up a really small amount of money to start going into an investment account. And I couldn't even have enough money to pay for groceries 2 years ago. So being able to start seeing that shift happen, where it's like, not only could I start investing in my future, but I could also like support my friends whenever they had fundraisers, or whenever they pledged their birthday to charity, or even setting up a couple of automatic payments to some charities that I really care about. I just was able to build so much more freedom into my life and feel so aligned with my value of generosity because of it. And I think as well, like having built Seed Waikato over the last couple of years, there's been many times where we've had $1,000 in the bank account and gone, how the hell are we going to keep this thing moving forward? We just never, ever were able to have enough to power us. And when I did all this work on money mindset, we went from $1,000 in the bank account to, in our last financial year, I think we had brought in over $100,000 to power our different programs and projects. And I genuinely attribute that to this work on my money mindset. So I wanted to bring this up and see if this resonates with anybody else. Have you had challenges with your money mindset over the years? Do you have a scarcity mindset, an abundance mindset? What has been some of the challenges in that approach, or some of the fruits, I guess, you've seen from it being either in a scarcity place or an abundance space? And I want to encourage someone who feels called to unmute and share a little bit about what this means for you. If we don't have anybody on the call keen, that's totally fine. But I know in talking with a few different types of young people that this is something that comes up time and time again. So yeah, do you want to share your money mindset story? What's been your biggest challenge in navigating scarcity or abundance? And what's the fruits that you've seen in either or? Who's going to be brave?
Hi there, it's Bianca.
Yoda.
Yoda. Actually, listening to your story, Gemma, that's exactly my childhood as well. Money was argued about in my household probably most of my life. I feel like that's the only thing I really remember. So when I was growing up, as in, you know, like going into adulthood myself, money was like all I thought about all the time. It's all I think about, you know, like, oh no, I can't do that because then I can't do this. And that's something I'm slowly trying to change. You know, I'm not my parents. I'm not in the same position. But yeah, it was interesting listening to your story. So I thought, yep, that was exactly my childhood too. Supermarket at the checkout, bouncing checks and
and
like
how does it play out for you now?
I'm a little bit better now because I try and I see life very differently than my parents as well. So my values of what I like to spend my money on is different. I think that was a big change as well. Like I felt like I had to spend my money on what they thought was right. And so like those are very different values to what I hold. And so I think that was a big change as well. Like where I spend my money is okay if I choose to spend my money on different things.
Okay, so it sounds like there was a mindset shift for you.
Yes.
I think about what was the tools that enabled the shift or the change. There was a mindset, there was a level of awareness. Were there any other practical tools that supported you through that shift?
Actually, I'm an ASB member myself, and actually going in a couple of years and speaking to somebody about getting some advice. That was probably a big one for me, because to understand my own money and like how I was spending it and using it. So yeah.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. So we and that would have been courageous as well. It's like going and talking to some person about your money stuff. So that's awesome. Okay, so we've actually got Melissa on the. Thank you for jumping on, Bianca. That's such an awesome share. We've got Melissa on the line. So if anybody is local, Mel's down at the branch at the university. So if anybody does want to go in and have a conversation about how to get on top of your finances, or another perspective or a soundboard or some real support there, I really encourage you to go and see Mel and her team down there. And I think I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to keep it nice, short and sharp, 5 minutes. And how did we go in our poll results? Who am I passing to next?
So it was a tight poll. It was 50-50 as to what the max, you know, what people want to know is. So we're gonna go with lifestyle budgeting, which is Sophie. Sophie has a little story to tell us about that.
Hello, yay, I'm the winner. So basically my goal was to save more money towards travel and unprecedented costs without compromising my lifestyle and things that are really important to me. So sort of the challenges and beliefs that I used to overcome my goal, I sort of did a mindset shift, and sort of understood that it's okay to spend money on things that I enjoy doing and having, but it's all about finding a cost-effective way of doing this and prioritizing what is important for you. So for me, the challenge was that I was spending a lot of my disposable income on clothes, So instead, I made a conscious effort to buy and sell more secondhand clothing from stores like Titty's, Recycle Boutique, and Designer Wardrobe. I'm sure you've all heard of those. And also always buying items on sale and never ever buy a full price thing. And going to sample sales, it goes a long way. You can get some awesome stuff at like the Muchi sample sales. They're always down in Ponsonby. Best part is with that kind of recyclable fashion is it's benefiting their environment as well. So to ensure that I'm on track towards achieving my goal of saving more, essentially, I regularly review my budget and sort of refine it to particular goals or events that I know that are coming up, and provision for one-off expenses that I know are coming up, like if I'm going away or going to a concert and things like that. Because I think it's one thing to make a budget, but you've really got to stick to it to set yourself up for success. And then when you're regularly reviewing it, you're forced to be honest with yourself, and then you can make any required changes. For example, like cutting out those excessive weekend brunches that I'm quite partial to. Some key tools for me were basically prioritization and being realistic. In that way, I was achieving my goals without compromising my lifestyle too much. For example, if getting a takeaway coffee in the morning sets you up for an awesome day, trying to cut that out is basically unrealistic and it's unsustainable. And you're better off cutting costs elsewhere that won't hurt as much. And also, I think that making small incremental changes to your everyday finances is a really good way as well. And then it ensures that, you're making progress towards your goals, and then you can build really solid habits. And that way you don't feel like you're missing out on too much, and then you're also prepared at the same time for any unanticipated costs. Does anyone have any questions about lifestyle budgeting or my little story? You can always pop them on the chat as well.
I'd be keen to hear if anyone has had any challenges in trying to create and stick to a lifestyle budget and how you overcame them. I liked how you framed up, Sophie, the morning coffee and setting yourself up for success with that. Louise knows I could not do without my morning coffee.
Yeah, I'm a bit the same.
But I wonder, has anybody else had some challenges in trying to build a lifestyle budget and how they have overcome them as a bit of shared learning?
We have a question in the chat. Liz says, I've been doing the sustainable shopping also. I have loved it, but seem to fall off and have a monthly binge. Any tips on how to stop that? And I have to just second that as a thing. I went past hospice the other day and terrible.
I actually have a good little tip for when you're really tempted to buy like a really expensive new item, especially when you've got emails coming through all the time with sales and new items. If I really want something, I make sure I think about it for at least 2 days instead of buying it straight away. Think about it for 2 days, and if you still want it, then think about what you're going to have to sort of opportunity cost of buying that item, what you're going to have to give up, and then that might make you sort of realize and put it in context if it's really expensive. And then if you still want it, then totally go for it. But I think just thinking about it, and just making sure you know the consequences of buying it, not being sucked in.
I lost my wallet the other day, and it was awful. But I mean, I went and looked around all the shops, and I literally could not buy anything. And then today, after I found my wallet, I was like, I'm still thinking about how great those earrings were in Trade Aid. Like I should go back and get them, because I'm still thinking that, that'd be so cute, instead of just being like, I love all the things. I'm gonna buy them. But don't lose your wallet. That's not a sustainable tip.
Don't go to Commercial Bay if you're trying to save money, I tell you that.
Did anyone else have any questions for Sophie?
How do you guys deal with trying to do those spur of the moment shops kind of things, like especially when you're going out with friends and something unexpected comes out and then you're worried about kind of missing out as well?
Yeah, I think the key is you don't have to give up everything. If your friends are going out for dinner, then by no means should you just stay home and not go because you need to save money. If you can afford it, just go out, and you don't have to spend heaps. Like I've definitely been the one known to go out for brunch and then buy like 2 coffees as well, and you just get the most expensive thing on the menu. But you can actually really save a lot of money if you're thinking about what you're getting on the menu and pre-plan as well, and maybe say, I'm going to spend X amount, and if I go, then that means maybe tomorrow I won't buy my takeaway coffee, and that's okay. It's just about again, prioritizing and thinking about the cost benefit to it.
I have another tip around that is to put some money aside that you know is just purely for entertainment. So, and that's how much you have. Like I put it in a separate account, like even if it's $20 or like every fortnight from my pay. And I know that when I go out, like in that month, I've got $40 that I could spend on whatever I want, drinks or buying a new pair of shoes. And that way I don't feel guilty about it. So I think just putting a little bit aside, and it's there for entertainment, so you don't feel guilty about using it for that purpose. Because sometimes I feel like we go out and we use money for entertainment and we feel guilty about it, but that shouldn't be your mindset. Part of life is to have fun and a good time and shop and enjoy nice things. So putting money aside, especially for that, actually makes you enjoy it a lot more. And it's a bit of a delayed gratification as well, which makes you feel kind of proud of yourself at the same time.
Yeah, again, I think it comes down to being realistic. Like if you're a social person and you go out most weekends, and you definitely need to be putting money aside for that and maybe giving up something elsewhere if you really want to sort of achieve your goals. But like for me, I know that I socialize quite a bit, so I'm not going to be unrealistic and not put any money aside for it. It's just being smart, I guess, about it.
I wanted to add one more thing in here too, Ella, because I think for me, spending time with friends is not necessarily about the food or like the drinks or whatever. It's like the connection and the friendship. And so what I ended up doing for a little while was actually organizing potlucks at my house, or like in our group, we would rotate houses of where we would do a potluck. Instead of going out to spend money, we would just make something within our weekly food budget, and then share that at each other's houses. So another little tip of like, what can I create with what I have so that I can still have the connection and the friendship and not feel like I'm missing out. So yes, that's my little share. Okay, awesome. Who else do we have up in the poll?
We have saving for a first home, and so I am gonna pass it over to Poe, who is next to me in my grid of squares.
Thanks, Louise. Hi, I'm Poe. I'll be talking to you about buying my first home. So I bought my first home in Hamilton back in 2014. So just rewinding a little bit, context-wise, KiwiSaver's subsidy for a first home was $350,000 at the time. Lucky time. And at that point, our goal was basically to buy a house with that limit. At the most, we would only go up to that amount. So when we went to the bank and when we were thinking about saving, we were like, okay, how much do we want to have for our deposit? And at the time, you would get a better interest rate with a 20% deposit. So that way, that would set our clear, savings goal. It was 70K, so 20% of 350. And as a result of that, that helped us to, have a clear target for what we were saving for, and we knew how much we had in the bank right now and what was that gap. And from there, we sort of went between the two of us, let's split out that savings gap and figure out how we're going to individually get to that amount. So for us, that was quite a bit of a challenge. We were in our early 20s. We just, come out of grad roles and all sorts like that. So we were just sort of figuring out what are the things we could use to get there. So at the time, the sorts of mindsets we had when we were even thinking about buying a house was, could we afford it? The only reason we actually thought about buying a house was we actually had a couple of friends who were buying houses at that time, and they were in reasonably good jobs as well. And so for us, we were like, if they can do it, we can do it. So why not have a think about it? And I think for my partner and I at the time, we were quite hesitant to start talking about money. So once we started unlocking those communication pathways to be like, hey, a house isn't a bad idea, it's a good asset to put some money into, I think that allowed us to openly talk about it and ask friends about it and all sorts like that, and that helped to educate us a little bit more in regards to that. And we just sort of, you know, put our thinking caps on and went, right, if that's our goal, what things might we consider trading off? So same thing that Tarah and Sophie were talking about, delayed gratification. What things can we potentially put on hold right now and try and save for in the future? And so to give you a bit of background of what I was doing back then, I was shopping with a budget of $50 a week. And for me, that meant that my value system, I'm not a huge eater, so I like the luxury of like a nice meal, but I'm quite happy with 2-minute noodles. So that's my thing. It's not everyone's thing. So it's just going, what is the things that what do you value versus what don't you value as much, and where can you find those savings? So for example, I don't drink coffee every day, and I'm happy with you know, instant coffee. So I will buy the instant versus a $5 coffee every day. And with the 2-minute noodles, I'm happy to live on that. Those sorts of things were things that I was happy to compromise on. When I did shop and when I did create a budget, I would list it down per item. So like cornflakes, bread, all of those little things made a little difference. So like I'd buy the 99-cent bread versus the $2 bread, just to like make those little savings things, because the small things count over time when you do think about saving over multiple weeks and multiple months. And just understanding what are your wants versus what are your needs. So you need to eat food, you need to have, you know, rent for your roof over your head, but what are the things that you potentially might go, well, I might just hold off on doing these certain things that I might really want to do, but because what you really want is that first home and that deposit to help you get that step on the ladder, that's sort of things you might want to just think about, just so that you internally know what you want from that perspective. Any questions? Is anyone currently thinking about buying your own home?
I saw a couple of people nodding, and we've got a yes in the chat. So saving for a house was definitely something that came through, like when we asked people questions in the registration. That was quite a theme. So I think even if people don't have questions, it's something they're thinking about. Shay says that they have no mic, but that's cool. If you have a question, Shay, type it and I'll read it out. I'll be your mic. And now we wait.
Would have taken so much discipline with $50 a week. How long did you stick to that? Like, what was that time commitment?
So $50 was pretty much the give or take roundabout. So I did sort of go like this every once in a while. For me, I am a bit like Sophie. I did like the dress shopping, and I impulse buy quite a bit. So keeping to a $50 was pretty hard. But I think for me, I was knowing that we were trying to save with the KiwiSaver subsidy, and I was coming up to the point where you could actually unlock your subsidy. So I had about 6 months before I think we were going to be able to buy and unlock all those things. So that was like our time frame. By knowing that that was the finite thing, or timeline, that was quite good, because I don't think I would have been able to do that for a longer time frame. It got to a point, but there was definitely elements that, you know, you'd overspend on certain weeks and you'd underspend in others. So it's just being aware of that, and it's okay if you need to go over. For the example of, you know, traveling to Hamilton, we were at grads in Auckland, so we'd fork the petrol bill every fortnight or so to just go down and visit folks over in Hamilton. So you've got to do what you've got to do.
I think as well, like sometimes buying the like 99-cent stuff, you can find wonderful things. I think the 99-cent hummus is the best hummus that you can get. So sometimes there's like good things that can come out of that. But Ella had a question. How does KiwiSaver work with first home buying?
Chelsea, I might pass this to you in regards to understanding a bit more in that sense. It's been a while before I've used KiwiSaver again.
No, that's all right. Yeah, so KiwiSaver, it works a little bit differently for different people, but I think the big gist of it is that by being in KiwiSaver, once you've been in it for a certain time frame, you can withdraw all of what you've got in your KiwiSaver minus $1,000, and that can be used towards your first home if you were going to live in that home. And so I personally can say that there's no way I would have been able to buy my first home without KiwiSaver. KiwiSaver is an investment fund, so it means that your money kind of gets pulled in with lots of other people and invested on your behalf. And so it's really important to sort of sit down with someone and get some advice on your KiwiSaver, wherever it might be, just so that you really understand sort of what your goal is for your KiwiSaver, and if your goal is to buy your first home, how much you want to be contributing, and sort of when you want to achieve that goal, because there is different things you can do with it. What Paul is also talking about is what we call the first home start grant. So once you've been in KiwiSaver for a certain amount of time, you also might be eligible for up to $5,000 as a contribution from the New Zealand government to put towards your deposit. Which is awesome. So Poe mentioned the cap for Hamilton at the time was $350,000. And so there are different sort of caps of which you need to purchase across New Zealand. But if buying your first home is something that, you know, you really want to work towards, my number one piece of advice would be sit down with someone, wherever that might be, and just think about how do you get started. I know that for like friends and family at the moment that are working towards their first home, they kind of sit there and go, I just have no idea where to start. And that's completely normal. So just, yeah, I think sit down with someone that you trust and get some advice around both your KiwiSaver, but also how you can start to save towards it yourself. It's definitely worth it. I can personally say that, yeah, had I not had KiwiSaver, I definitely wouldn't be sitting in my first home today. With any other questions on KiwiSaver, Louise?
We have from Grace, can KiwiSaver help me buy an investment property that I won't live in?
No, Melissa, I'll double check with you, but my understanding is no, you have to be living in the property for a minimum of 6 months for you to be able to use your KiwiSaver towards it.
Yeah, Chelsea, that's right. You do need to be living in it.
Yeah.
And it is a minimum of 6 months, yeah.
Perfect.
Cool.
Cool.
Whoop, here, we're going. Right as I was about to change the subject, would it be a good idea to chat with someone at ASB in regards to a first home with KiwiSaver?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're always here to help. Melissa is a great example of that. And we love, I used to love that conversation for helping Kiwis into their first homes. But yeah, any of the banks will absolutely be able to help you, but come sit down. As I said, find someone that you trust and you connect with. I think that really helps. But Melissa will definitely be able to help you through that and just understand more about it. Absolutely.
And I do want to say it did not come from an ASB staff member, that question. It was an earnest question. Cool. If we don't have any more questions on KiwiSaver or first homes, this is my pause for you to like get them in. Okay, we will move on to making debt work for you. Is that what we called it? What do we call it? Debt in your favor. So that gets to be my story. So I had braces that my grandma paid for. and I had wisdom teeth that were coming in like sideways. I promise this relates to money eventually. And I went to the dentist and they were like, yep, your teeth are mucking up all your other teeth. You need to get them out as soon as possible. But it's going to cost you $2,000. And I was a student. I was like, I do not have $2,000. And I was kind of like, oh no, like, what do I do? Basically, the longer that those wisdom teeth were in my mouth, the longer they were messing up all my other teeth, and the more mad my grandma was going to be at me for messing up all the work my braces did. So for me, I was like, oh no, I need to get this sorted right away. I couldn't ask anyone for a loan. That wasn't my situation at the time. But I did know, being a student, that I was eligible for a $2,000 interest-free overdraft, which I previously had not touched, hadn't considered. So I went into my bank and said, hi, I'm still a student. Can I please have my $2,000 with no interest, please? And they were like, yeah, sure, okay. And I'm someone who's very like, I avoid debt at all costs. I don't like thinking that I have money that's not really mine. That would be a little bit dangerous. So I've always been quite cautious around that, but that was an opportunity for debt that was really good and really positive, partly because it had no interest. And I set some really, really specific goals for myself. Like, I knew exactly when it was going to flip over. I had about a year from when I finished studying to when it was going to start accruing interest. And I said, I want to have paid this off before it starts getting interest, so that it can be just something that facilitated better health and well-being for me in general, rather than something that was going to be costing me even more in the future. So that's my story about how debt isn't always a bad thing. It can be something that facilitates you to be able to do stuff faster if you don't have access to like simply money. Liz says your teeth are beautiful, Louise. Thank you. I work very hard on them. I brush them. I try to make my dentist proud. But yeah, so that's kind of one example about debt and how it's not always bad. But I did have to make a budget and, you know, be really clear about paying it off. So I'm not sure if anyone else has a specific story about teeth, but if you have a specific story about debt and was interested to share it, would love to hear it, especially if you've managed to use it in a positive way for yourself.
Be bold and share.
I do definitely think that, like, Afterpay, while not as like important as wisdom teeth necessarily, could be one of those things that for some people falls into this category.
Louise, I did the same thing with my Invisalign. So I didn't get braces or Invisalign whilst I was at uni because I was too afraid. But then once I got a job, I managed to get like a 48-month interest-free loan with Q card. And it was so easy to pay off, and it allowed me to have straight teeth now. So a lot of times things like Invisalign, dentists, laser, or even LASIK treatment, a lot of those options tend to have an interest-free loan that they can give you with like other like credit card party providers, sometimes not with the bank, which I probably shouldn't be saying, but it is a really great choice to use them, but you just have to be really onto it and make sure you're making your minimum interest payments and within that time frame, and also canceling it once you're done. Otherwise you're paying unnecessary like membership joining fees every year. So that's been a great lifesaver for me. And I bought some other things along the way, like my PhD hair straighteners.
Which is also very important for your well-being, I understand. I don't have a lot of hair, but someone else messaged and say they used OxyPay when they got their teeth pulled. I assume that's a similar thing. I'm seeing other people nodding. Yeah. I think what you were saying, Tara, around like making sure you know you can repay it is really important. For me, that was something I was a little bit nervous about, going from being a student and being really, really poor to like knowing in that time frame I would hopefully get a job, and trying to kind of like being like, I will get a job, 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 and kind of like changing that mindset of like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing in the future, to like, I will get a job and I will pay off this loan, and like, yes, that's going to be a thing that happens. That was something that I kind of had to work on mentally as much as like literally getting a job.
I have something to share with that as well. I had to buy a new bed because the other one just was too bad for my back. I didn't have the money at the time, so I did, I think, 24 months interest free, so I could have the bed straight away. But what I did, every paycheck, I worked out how much I needed to save every fortnight for my pay over those 24 months. So when the 24 months came up, I just paid the lump sum in one go and made a little bit of interest in my bank account at the same time. So that's
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah, I think working out as well, if you can make a little bit of interest, if you keep it in your bank account, as long as you don't spend it.
That is the trick.
Yeah.
I also have a story. It wasn't necessarily me, but it was some of my friends while we're at uni. And I think this one was a bit of a gutsy and a bold move, and something that I didn't really ever think about. And I think that comes back to what Gemma was saying really early in the piece about what kind of mindset you have and how you were brought up and how you kind of take on those tendencies. Whereas some of the guys while we're at uni, what they did is they got their overdraft amount, and because it was interest free, and then they shopped around for the best interest rate for savings, and they pretty much funneled it all in to a savings account that they weren't going to ever touch. And I think they're a little bit naughty and put a little bit of their course related costs in there as well. So then they had about $2,000 to $3,000 in a savings account that they were earning more of the savings interest than they would have in fees for having an overdraft amount. And I was like shocked when I found out that they did that, because it's definitely not something that I would have done, but they managed to make a bit of coin out of it at the end of the year, whereas you know, I was just a bit more risk averse and like trying not to spend money I didn't have. So you know, that's how they kind of helped it work in their favor, I guess.
I think it's always about like balancing, and sometimes like doing the math on working out if you'll make a few dollars by the end of the year isn't always worth like working that out, like how much time it would take you to be like, and if I got that kind of bank account and then I'll make like $10, and it's like, wow, it took me half an hour to work that out. I always like weigh it up that way. But we have a couple of questions in the chat. What do you do when you find yourself buried in debt? How do you shift your mindset to not feel overwhelmed? And I might open that up to any of the ASB crowd if you have any thoughts on that. I feel like everyone's heard my thoughts on that. Don't all go at once.
I could probably jump in because I think it kind of ties into one of my stories I was going to share actually. It's just around paying off a credit card bill. And that probably comes into play whether it might be one credit card or 5. How do you sort of manage that? And I think for me, the number one thing with the credit card debt that I did have, it was straight out of uni. I wish I was as smart as the people that we just shared that story on and had that much self-control, because I definitely didn't have that at uni. And I think I have always been a spender, like I still am to this day. And so some of the things that I considered when looking at the debt that I had is what was the interest rate on it? And I prioritised paying off the credit card that had the higher interest rate. And I think one of the things I did really early on was try to set a goal around it, kind of like what Poe was talking about, like setting a really realistic goal around when you want to achieve it or have it paid off. And I think the biggest thing that I did was sorting out a budget. And so I looked at what was the goal of which I wanted to have achieved it, and then what would I need to be putting onto the credit card every fortnight in order to achieve that goal. And so within my budget, I made sure so like I looked at what needed to come out first, and that was rent and food. And for me, it was insurances. And then that kind of fourth priority was paying off that highest credit amount. And so that was as soon as I got paid every fortnight, an automatic payment went straight out of my account onto my credit card straight away. So it didn't even come through my accounts to then go onto the credit card, because I knew that I would have just taken it out and sent it and said I'll do it in another fortnight. And then the other cool thing that I did that I found really helpful was actually decreasing my credit card limit. So every time I made a payment onto it, I decreased it by whatever amount I had paid in. Because one of the things that I tried to stay really honest with myself on, and I try to still do it now, is if I look at what I owe on my credit card, what do I have to show for it? And I wasn't like Louise, where I had no more wisdom teeth. I looked back at that credit card statement and was genuinely like, I have nothing to show for this other than some clothes in my wardrobe that I've probably worn 2 or 3 times each. And that for me was where I saw my real shift in mindset. And I see that still coming through with me today. Like when I go out or when I look at clothes or go shopping, it's, do I want it or do I need it? And I loved Sophie's example of waiting 2 days. I'm going to do that from now on, and just chill and just sleep on it and see if it's definitely something that I need. But you know, I definitely noticed a big mindset shift with that. And I think pretty early on, that was a financial goal that I really wanted to achieve. And I was able to do it, and it took real hard work. But it also gave me the momentum moving forward to go, what's my next financial goal? And I think just start small. When you're looking at debt, focus on that with the highest interest rate. Be realistic with your goal. Do some budgeting. And again, if you need advice on where to start, definitely seek that out either through your bank or the Citizens Advice Bureau is really good for budgeting advice. Or sorted.org.nz has some really cool tips and tricks on how to work out how to prioritise your debt. But yeah, hopefully that helped. Does anyone have any questions on that whole debt piece?
There are some comments in the chat. Shall I read them out?
Cool.
From Liz. Thank you, Liz. I knew this guy that got a loan for $50,000 to invest in Air New Zealand when COVID hit, and he sold his shares a month later for $110,000. This is super risky, but an interesting example of using debt in your favor. And then in brackets, please talk to your banking specialist before trying anything similar, lol. I'm going to leave that. I'm going to leave it as it is. And then from Courtney, I've never owned a credit card, but I have heard a good credit rating as a necessity for particular purchases. What is the best way of going about this?
And I think we talked about this in the first session a little bit, but it's a bit of a myth out there that you need to have a credit score in order to be eligible for a home loan or any form of lending. And it's certainly not. So please don't feel that you need to go out and get a credit card in order to just solely kind of tick that box off. There's lots of different things that banks look at when lending customers money. Credit rating is one of them, but also if you feel you're one of those people like me who just spends it because it's there and I have a mindset of I'll pay it off later, don't put yourself in that position. And if you decide you do want to buy a home, there are lots of other things that we take into consideration. And if you've never had debt before, that's just something we have a conversation about. But it definitely won't be have a negative impact on, your lending applications moving forward.
Awesome.
Cool.
We've probably got time for one more story.
Yeah. Do you think? Travis, do you think you've got 3 minutes? 3 minutes.
All right, we'll put it up, but I'll do my best. So yeah, I'm going to change the subject a wee bit here. So I wanted to talk around how to plan your weekly grocery shop with an environmental mindset, and by reducing your single-use plastics, and how to do it in a way that can actually save you money as well. So firstly, why is it important? During the COVID-19 lockdown, we learned 2 things. one, how important it is to have a good budget and have some good savings, and two, that we need to start taking better care of our environment. As a quick example, 100,000 marine animals die each year, essentially from choking on plastic, and remembering that only about 20% of all plastics actually get recycled. So one of the biggest objections I hear is that looking for non-plastic alternatives is more expensive and can be quite hard to find. So I just wanted to really quickly, in the 2.5 minutes I have left, show three things that I hope will debunk those theories that can allow you to purchase more sustainably and save you money along the way. So the first one is your humble honey wax strips. So I'm not too sure if any of you guys have used these before, but essentially you're replacing your plastic Glad wrap and you're wrapping your leftovers in this. And then once you've used it, you wipe it down and use it again. So straight away you're saving money by not continuously buying plastic Glad wrap. Now in terms of cost, they do cost about $45 for a pack of 5, but if you're really on a budget, you can make them yourselves using cloth and a homemade wax and honey mixture. Now, plenty of information on the internet how to make it, but if there's enough interest, more than happy to give out some information on how you can do it yourself. The second one I wanted to give you is quite an obvious one, but it is really easy, and that's your reusable coffee cups. I know there's a lot of coffee fans out there that can't survive a morning without their coffee fix. So the cafes, first of all, will love you for it. First of all, they're saving money by buying less cups, and also you're reducing wastage as well. So the good thing is you can save money. A lot of cafes will give you a discount, whether it's just a straight discount on purchase, or some of them will charge you for a small but give you a large serving. So it pays to go into your favourite cafe and ask what specials they have on if you bring your own cup. Really quickly, I just wanted to give you the third option, and this one brings with it a bit of nostalgia as we bring back the days of the glass milk bottles. So a lot of farms out there these days are looking for more eco-friendly options, and getting rid of plastic and selling it in glass bottles is a great idea. You got your hand up. Did you want to say something, Louise? Or
1 minute.
Oh, I've got 1 minute left. Okay, all right. Pop into your local bin in. They've got options. This will vary from region to region, but it'll you buy the bottle first, and then it's a swap a bottle system. So you drink your milk, take it in, swap out your empty one. They give you a brand new one. The cost is about the same as a bottle of milk from the supermarket, but you've just saved a turtle's life in doing this. So if you've got any other questions or any other tips, leave a comment. Happy to answer anything you may have. How's that?
That's so good. Yeah, I think like it's so cool to kind of align that value of, you know, the client's ability, like close as well, some of those things, and being able to really value that. Probably see the cost benefits. Might be a bit of an initial upfront blow, but if that's something you really want to do, what we've heard tonight is there's some ways to set some goals around that. So is it true that there is no single-use plastic at your house, Travis?
Yeah, well, with the COVID lockdown, excuse me, we did, we had to have some plastics because during the lockdown it was a case of we had to get whatever we could get our hands on. But post-COVID, yes, that's right. So we're using back to our glass milk bottles, our honey wraps, our reusable cups. So yeah, we set that goal. We've got things like we take around little bags into the supermarkets and do our veggies that way. So I've got plenty of other options. My wife has reusable makeup wipe removers. So yeah, we do all of that.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing. That's awesome. So that kind of brings us to the end of tonight, team. It's been a quick fire round, and we've shared a few different stories to hopefully inspire some new ideas, some goals, and I'm really not alone, you know, like we're in this together. We're all trying to navigate our financial well-being, and some things are good things, but we're in this together. And so in wrapping up, I just want to thank you for sharing stories, and getting practical about what the real tools are to help start your goals. It's like this work. I don't know if we've got coming up.
Can you guys hear Gemma?
No.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was just me. I'm sorry, Jim, you sound like a robot.
Sorry, Gemma. Can I just wrap up from an ASB side? Thanks for everyone for coming along and listening to our stories. I was gonna share a story about how to save on a budget for a wedding or a special event, but you may have to come to the third workshop for all my great tips. But I just wanted to mention again Melissa Newman. She is one of the branch managers at Waikato University. So if you have any questions, please go and see her. We'll send her details around in the post-workshop survey. And also don't forget all the tips and the tools that we shared from our first workshop. So we provided like a budgeting, income and expenses template, a financial well-being tool that you could go do a little short survey to get an idea of where you're at, and some tips on the ASB website also. So I'll kindly ask Louise and Gemma to send them around again to some of the newer people who have joined. And if you have any more questions, feel free to send them on and we're happy to answer. So that's from us. Thanks, everyone.
Cool. I'm not sure if Gemma's still a robot, but if she is, thank you all for coming. It was so lovely to hear all of your thoughts and questions, and to have such a great sharing session, because so much of this is about sharing and learning from each other, and I think we really nailed that tonight. What Gemma was probably going to say was that we have some new workshops up. So we have one with Bryony McKenzie next week, and we will have our final ASB financial wellbeing workshop in 2 weeks' time. So that's the Monday 2 weeks from now. So please, please, please register for that as well, and we will have some more awesome korero around that. Awesome. Cool, good, done. Have a good night.